I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago. And I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy L7. That's right. And today I got a very special guest. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'm a big fan of his content. I definitely encourage you guys to subscribe. I'm gonna let him introduce himself though. Yeah, what's up? Go ahead, introduce yourself to the viewers.
Hey, E. Yeah, my name is Israel. I'm over at YouTube as Big Talk, Little Talk. That's the name of the show that I run. And on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Israel's Daily, all one word, Israel S Daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to talk.
I missed the S the first time that I tried to sign up for the Twitter. I was like, there's no followers. What's this? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Then I looked at the thing again, Israel S Daily. Yeah, the S. I missed that S the first time.
Yeah, I know, it throws people off.
Yeah, okay, so make sure you put the S in there. Yeah. All right, cool, man. So, the first thing I want to ask you right there is, boom, like, why did you start your channel? You know what I mean? Like, what was the impetus for that?
So I've kind of always been interested in politics, you know? And last year, I think it was in January, I really started picking up doing videos, mainly following Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, because I didn't feel like enough people were covering her campaign. I thought, me coming from a military background, I really resonated with her campaign. I like Bernie Sanders. I did a little bit of work, phone banking and stuff like that for Bernie in 2016. But before that, I was a conservative, so I've kind of been all over the map, which is nice. I get to kind of pull different perspectives, different ideas, and I hope that that's what I contribute to the space, especially now that I've kind of entered the progressive space, I guess. Still a little bit conservative on social issues, but yeah, that's kind of how I got started, is the Gabbard campaign.
I actually like that mix, and I appreciate that mix when I watch your material, because there's this weird mix where people equate progressivism with leftism, but that's not necessarily true at all. You know what I mean? Left and progressivism is not the same thing. And I think that you have, I think a lot of people actually see things the way you do, like Joe Rogan or Alba and Preach. Like, they be talking about these issues in a very similar fashion. So I think that, I feel like academia has kind of pigeonholed us, and also political commentators, like the mainstream media, tries to push us a certain way. But I think a lot of us has more in common than the intelligentsia would have us believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely live in kind of hyper partisan times. Everybody has their cliques and their policies or whatever that they really care about, or politicians that they follow. So I think it makes it a little bit harder to kind of be nonpartisan and kind of talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the progressive thing, I mean, progressivism and the left, I mean, a lot of leftists would tell me, oh, well, Bernie Sanders shouldn't be using democratic socialist because he's really more of a so we get into these labeling things, right? Which we shouldn't. I think that's also a bad thing. But, they conflate progressivism sometimes with socialism and all this other stuff. And I think the labeling thing is just kind of obnoxious to me, especially when everything that's driven in the country is policy and legislation, activism too is an important thing. I know you're kind of involved in that space, so that's important.
Yeah. And that's a big appeal of your channel for me. I saw you into other things too, I think you have some gaming content playlists and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I've been meaning to kind of get those off the ground for a long time, but this show kind of pulls all my efforts right now, and I'm still in school, so it makes it even harder.
I used to have a game store called Heights of Gaming, stuff like that, so that's just interesting. You have a Discord or anything? You're gonna do a Discord for the gaming fans?
Yeah, I have a Discord for the political show. Got a couple people on there, and we kind of exchange articles and stuff like that, information. And I'll definitely open up that for for my gaming channel. I also want to start an anime channel. So I like to kind of discuss all topics. So I would really love to open up those channels and get it going. Movies, all that.
I'll be glad to put any links to your Discord or whatever you want. Right, if it's not ready yet, you let me know. I'll put that all in the chat below. No problem. You said the progressivism space, when I asked about your channels about, is that really your focus though? Or you're going to, after the election's over, honestly, right? Probably you might have time for some of those other things, right? Like the anime.
For sure.
Yeah. So what's the current goal for your channel?
I definitely have time for that. I also want to focus more on like video essays
Okay.
for the political show. So just kind of exploring, because there's a whole world out there of politics that is outside the electoral space,
Yeah.
So I would love to kind of explore that just so I understand it better because I'm still kind of new to the left wing, sort of. So like progressive and like all these other, things. So definitely I'm doing like video essays on stuff like that. Like Hispanic conservatism is one that I did recently. A lot of times they get typecasted. So
Okay.
minorities sometimes get typecasted by liberals and even some progressives. It's like, oh, they're just another minority group that needs government help. But in reality, I mean, Hispanic community is very religious. They're very conservative. They're very pro-gun. They're very pro-liberty. So, I think, looking into those issues and investigating those would help, if anything, just to get that topic out there. So
Yeah.
progressives can, be more knowledgeable and say, okay, well, when I'm doing activism or whatever, now I know, what the issues are for these folks, or, I can kind of be more prepared to have discussions in real life with them when I'm trying to like sign them up to, petition for this, or, try to join this third party or whatever.
A lot of people know about Martin Luther King, they know about Malcolm X, but Cesar Chavez, like everybody wears the Chase shirts because he's a good-looking guy. But Cesar Chavez, that's a real leader in the, in the movement in terms of like fighting for workers' rights, Latino issues, things like that. Like honestly, I know there's like a little dust up with the Filipinos. Like I'm a student of this stuff, man, and I love it, man. So honestly, I mean, a lot of people want to look at Latinos and they see them in a certain way, but they are leaders. They got their own thing going, and they are beasts in the game. So if you guys really paying attention, you guys know that they have a lot to contribute. So word up, man. Super excited to hear about that. Yeah. So look, you've been doing like this channel for a while, right? I guess you started with the Tulsi campaign, you said. So has your perspective changed since you been doing this show?
Yeah, a little bit. Honestly, like, because like when I was more conservative leaning, like it was a lot easier, and I think it's just because like conservatives, they don't have so much going on in their space. It's kind of like abortion, religion, and immigration. Those are kind of their three main goals. And so as long as a politician, has the right positions on that, it's usually like a done deal. But once I got into kind of Tulsi Gabbard's campaign, Bernie Sanders' campaign, man, like there's all this kind of stuff, and it's good and bad, right? Like the factions we were talking about before the show, like it's good and bad because you get to like explore different ideas, but then to bring everybody together, once election time comes around, or once like, you really want to get organized on this one issue, like healthcare, you want to get organized in this one thing, like the Assange case, like not a lot of people know about it. So you want to get people activated to discuss Julian Assange or WikiLeaks or whatever. It's like, herding coyotes or whatever, or like wild cats. It's hard to get the left kind of organized like that. It's frustrating.
Yeah, we actually I just had the Taking Action Group meeting where we were discussing that the formation of the new MPP party, People's Party, and they're kind of new, but we were talking about its relation to the Green Party. But that's another. We'll be having that episode coming out soon. But very cool to see how your things have changed. Just interested, right quick. Well, actually, you kind of answered it already, right? Like I was going to ask, like, what made you conservative, like, move over? But yeah, like the free speech, right? Like anti-censorship types of things, liberty, right? That kind of like makes sense. Yeah. So what are the like you said, now this term progressive, right? I talk to so many people, and some people are like, oh, that person's a fake progressive. Oh, that person's a real progressive, right? So what is a progressive to you?
So progressives are kind of reformists. So they still believe in upholding the capitalist system. And this is the thing about like, what's progressive, what's not, is that, a lot of these terms get lost in translation, especially as we go on with time.
Yeah.
And so certain people adopt it and they become popular. So the title gets associated with them. A good example is like Bernie Sanders, right? So he was pushing for a lot of progressive ideas, right? Keeping public education, securing Social Security, minimum wage and all of that, the safety net. So that's kind of where progressivism, I mean, if you look at the progressive era in history, I mean, you can see that, right? FDR was a pretty good example of a progressive, and he's known as the, person who saved capitalism, right? Because there was so much fervor and so much activity from the left, that he really pushed for those reforms that kind of, quailed that and settled people and gave them enough and, reformed the country from where it was. So, yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's kind of what a progressive has always been. But nowadays, I think that it's most associated with like the Bernie Sanders wing, socialists, people who want to take over for the means of production, which is just socialism, right? Socialism is just, the
Yeah.
workers take the means of production. And so, like, yeah, it's, I had a whole deal on Twitter this morning. Like,
Yeah.
people were just kind of like jumping on me. It was fun. But yeah, and I would hit them with the definitions, because like I'm curious. So I look it up and I say, oh, okay, this is what it means. It's different from what a lot of people seem to interpret it as.
I have
And man,
yeah.
that sparks fireworks.
I have my own thoughts on a bunch of things that you said, but today's show is about you. Yeah, today's really to let my listeners know about you, to get them familiar with you. So I'm not going to inject my own things in there. But,
Don't worry, I'll invite you on my show and we can discuss those
It's
things.
all good. I can't wait, man. Yeah. Actually, it's cool that you're doing this. And actually, this is called, my series here is called Internet Activists, right? Did you do any activist work like over the years? Like try to like you have some thoughts on things, right? You have some.
Yeah, I mean, I for a while there, I was really interested in like unions and stuff like that.
Okay.
Kind of like more workplace activism. So doing that kind of stuff. With truckers and stuff like that. Truckers, they move 70% of manufacturing and service goods.
Yeah.
So imagine if, the entire trucking industry organized and halted production. You're an activist, you're that kind of acceleration guy. Imagine that. The country would completely stop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I don't have anything against like people going out in the streets and doing that. I personally tend to think that's kind of gone, the way of history. I mean, the 70s, the 60s, that was all fine and dandy, but like today people work. We're kind of, in this kind of hyper work mode, like people are doing gig jobs and stuff like that. So it's harder to get people, to participate, I think, nowadays. So another thing that I'm interested in as far as like activism is really looking into Mike Gravel's people legislation. So he has this thing where, I guess in the Constitution, I have to look more into this, so I don't want to like put misinformation out there. But essentially from what I got is just like, people are allowed to produce and introduce legislation outside of the congressional sphere, outside of politician involvement. So I think getting that conversation going, I really want to look into that and study that more and kind of focus in on that. I think that could be really, really interesting. Yeah.
I think that's referendums can kind of get that done, can't they?
Yeah, I think referendums are kind of the same thing. I don't know if that's exactly what he was speaking to, but I know referendums are also another way to kind of get things on the ballot, get things, direct vote, and stuff like that. So people can actually vote for things.
Yeah.
We've seen some successes in that, right? Like, I mean, I live here in Colorado. So, the whole marijuana thing, that's a big example there of a successful, reform like that.
Right. Actually, I think this question is really well geared for yourself because you have this, because you are a Yang Gang guy looking at like, how the infrastructure works and things like that. So I think this next question is particularly suited for you. What are your thoughts on the current situation? The COVID, the economy, the political situation, the whole thing. What do you think?
I think that, people are kind of obviously scared. They're worried. I mean, unemployment's skyrocketing right now. And, I think this has a lot of like activist revolutionaries excited because they're like, oh, unemployment, and I tend to be more of a glass half full person. So I don't want to get to that point, and I know people that I know personally that are cheering for the collapse. But I'm like, dude, that means that people are going to be hurting, suffering, and they're going to be desperate. And they're not going to turn to you lefties. They're going to turn to the infrastructures that they know, that they're familiar with, right? They're Congress people. The guy that sits next to them in church on Sundays, that greases their palm and tells them everything's going to be all right. Is that guy an asshole and probably doesn't represent his district well and just wants to keep his cushy job? Yeah, but guess what? He's sitting in that damn seat and they're seeing him every Sunday at service,
Yeah.
So that's what I fear is that, they're placing their bets on this kind of like, long shot. But I think that, Andrew Yang presents some good solutions that I like. Tulsi Gabbard presents some good solutions that I like. I think that the universal basic income, the freedom dividend, is a good example of that. We see the popularity, swelling when it comes to that particular uh, policy. And then we also see kind of a groundswell of support for democracy dollars because, I don't know if you're familiar with TYT, Cenk Uygur, and all that early on. I never really liked their show or anything like that, but I just want to reference them because they're the people who are pushing Wolfpack. You have to get all these states to do an amendment to the Constitution, and how divided we are right now, Republican, Democrat, the duopoly, and that trickles down to like the state legislatures and all that. So yeah, I think that's kind of a long shot. I'm not going to discourage anybody from trying. Go ahead, try whatever measure you want to try. I think that's always good to try a multi-pronged approach. But I think democracy dollars is a more realistic, in my personal opinion, because it puts everybody in that business mindset, which we live in a capitalist system, and everybody's familiar with that. I'm a congressman. I'm stuck in this cubicle. I'm making phone calls to the oligarch. I'm making phone calls to the handful of 1%ers in my district or in my state or in my whatever. Well, now there's thousands of Americans who have $100 stipend that I can go and compete for. So now if you think about it, it's an open market for them instead of just trying to focus in on that 1% to constantly give them money.
Exactly.
Well, it's a handful of people, so the handful of people are going to have a pretty unique perspective of what needs to get done.
Actually, that's funny because
all these politicians,
seriously, right? Like amongst I participated in a group called NYC Yang Gang on Facebook, and actually I like democracy dollars even better than UBI. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's his number one thing because honestly, I think that the way that it breaks down, right? I think they did the numbers, and I think they said that like if you take all like the $100 right, everybody donating to that fund to fund the candidate of your choice, right? Then you actually outweigh the corporations on an 8-to-1 basis. You know what I mean? That's really powerful. That number 8-to-1. So those lobbyists that have all the power right now, they're passing all these stupid anti-public interest laws. You know what I mean? They're gonna be destroyed because at an 8-to-1 basis, you think half the people ain't doing it. You still at 4-to-1. You still kicking the ass.
Even 4-to-1. 3-to-1.
Even if half the people don't do it, you know what I mean? You still winning. So so I love that democracy dollars for real. That's very cool, man. And I'm glad that because honestly, within the Yang Gang, there's so many people who don't know about democracy dollars. I'm like, what?
I know, that's
one of the best things. Yeah, it's one of the best things for real. Actually,
they know UBI, but democracy dollars definitely need more work there.
Yeah, I have my own thoughts about UBI, and I like it in some ways, but I think that it also can be done incorrectly. But we'll save that for another episode. My thoughts on it, unless you want to go off on it, unless you have your own.
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, there's concerns with UBI. There's concerns with like a federal minimum wage, right? Yeah. And I think there's a lot of nuance in between. I've heard people actually talk about how, when it comes to like a $15 minimum wage, maybe you can have something for small businesses, right? Yeah. Like help for small businesses. Or if you have UBI, you can have it to where, you can buy stuff, but a certain part of it has to go to like essentials, right? So that people aren't just spending it on cigarettes and alcohol or whatever.
Well, it's I think implementation is key, right? Because just like the Patriot Act, which is nothing patriotic about it, right? I bet you they'll try to pass some form of UBI, but they'll make the corporations like they don't have to pay UBI. You know what I mean? Or they don't have to pay the VAT tax, or they'll find some way to completely screw it up in a way where it's completely still going to like the corporations, and they'll still call it UBI, but it won't really be UBI. You get what I mean? I think that's the danger of getting it.
Yeah, there's always loopholes they can find.
Yeah, that's the danger.
That's why they have all those lawyers.
That's the danger of falling in love with the label. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm this. And this is always good and that's always bad. No, man. You know what I mean? There's good and bad in each situation. You got to like really implement it correctly. So for real, man. I like to hear that, man. For
I
real.
agree.
So, so look, there's a lot of other progressive channels out there, right? But what makes your voice unique amongst all the other, progressive channels out there?
Well, I feel like, you kind of spoke to it. I mean, I'm open-minded, I'm willing to kind of look at every perspective. I'm going to tell you that I have like a bias, right? Like I'm more socially conservative. So I might have some takes that you disagree with on social issues, right? But I'm also like pretty progressive on economics, and I'm willing to have discussions with people. I mean, really what I'm focusing in on is just kind of adding more entertainment to my channel segments and stuff like that. Cause I feel like, it's usually just like a guy with a camera and a microphone, and it's kind of like,
I do notice that.
So I want to kind of add a little bit. Yeah.
The production
So
value is
just adding
definitely
that
a little bit higher. You got that cool little sax guy. You got the sexy ladies going on. You know what I mean? You also got
well, I come from a little bit of a tech background, so
awesome.
I got a little bit of advantage there. Yeah.
And you got that kind of like whole neo wave kind of thing going, like that whole. Like,
I love that stuff, man.
I could tell.
Synthwave, retro. Yeah.
I could tell, man. Yeah, and I appreciate that there's a stylistic look to it, because coming from like a music background, from an entertainment background, you want to have a certain style that you bring to it, and I definitely recognize that style right there, which is cool, man. Yeah. So what I know that you're on the Twitter. I saw your post actually this morning. I think we interacted just a little bit, right? When I was like, I'm on Nico House,
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Blowing it up, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I was handling like multiple attacks,
So so I know you on the YouTube, and once again for everybody out there, right? Israel's Daily on Twitter, but on YouTube he's the
Big Talk, Little Talk.
Big Talk, Little Talk, no spaces, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Big Talk, Little Talk. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any Is there what other social media platforms you on? Facebook, things like that. What's up?
So we're on. I mean, I have a Facebook for everything's kind of Big Talk, Little Talk. So if you go on Facebook, on Big Talk, Little Talk. Reddit, we have a Reddit.
Cool.
r/Big Talk, Little Talk. The Discord, I can send you the Discord. Here after the show. And I mean, mostly YouTube and Twitter is where like predominantly most of my activity is. It's just so easy, to go from Twitter, get what you need to get, and research what you need to research, and then get the show
I'm new to Twitter. I just
YouTube.
started on Twitter. I really never messed with Twitter because I didn't have time to learn it. But now that I'm stuck at home, I'm learning all the Instagram. I had never messed with any of that before. Yeah.
I would suggest taking breaks from Twitter, because Twitter just takes it up to another level.
Oh yeah,
and it could be a little bit daunting, So it doesn't faze me, but some people,
I'm that next level kind of cat. I'm that super energy.
There you go. Yeah, I like your
hardcore.
vibe, man. You're ready.
Yeah, definitely. So so the social media platforms, the YouTube, the Twitter, that's cool. All right. So what are your plans for the future, man? Where's the show gonna go?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, I really like to look at my audience and see what what's doing good, what's doing bad. I definitely have a plan. I want to do more infotainment. I want to do kind of wilder, more like upscale, shows, episodes, segments, and see where that takes me. Just kind of use my creativity and see if people like it. Like for example, I did a recent video that just dropped called the Second American Civil War from the perspective of like a professor historian. And it was kind of like a Ancient Aliens type of like mockumentary, and it's just kind of like the year 2047, and how would it look, if a historian was explaining a second Civil War that happened, and then all of that. So that was fun to do. People seem to react pretty positively to that. But always trying to think outside the box.
I'll put a link to that as well, to that particular video down there. Yeah. Do you have, by the way, like I can't even remember all the videos I did. But do you have like a certain favorite video that like you've made, or
Yeah, I mean, one of my.
Oh, you do? Okay, cool. I can't even think of.
I have a couple.
So what are some of the better ones? Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I really liked a recent one I did about the Hills, the Rising. Because
Ooh, I like that show. I like that show.
I
like
that
Ball
show
and Saga,
too. Yeah, I like that show too.
But
I don't know if you know who. Yeah,
I hear a big butt. Yeah, go ahead.
You know who Kim Iverson is?
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah. So Kim Iverson, she kind of dropped, like some information that I was like curious about, because she was like, "Well, you guys know the Hill, the Rising is like corporate media, right?
It is. That's true. That is.
So
true.
you gotta always be careful where you get your media, and just be aware of like everybody's bias. If they don't tell you your bias up front, do your due diligence. Keep that activist mind. Always look what's behind the curtain. And so we did, it was me and a couple other YouTube small channel folks. And we just kind of looked into it, right? We did research and we found out who it was. So I like doing those things. So that's one of my favorite ones. It doesn't have like a bunch of views, but I enjoyed it. And then, what's another one? The TYT Union. Following the TYT Union stories, I did a couple segments on those. I enjoyed those because, same kind of situation. You got to understand, where their bias is coming from. If they're not telling you up front, you got to do your own research and make sure you don't have to stop following them or stop subscribing to them. I still enjoy Crystal Ball and Sauger and Jetty. I think they do good work, but I know that they're always constantly going to hit on this, right?
Yeah,
always going to bring up Bernie Sanders, and they're always going to hit on the establishment Democrats, right? So I understand going into it like what the situation is.
Yeah, actually it's funny because we did a tier list of different progressive channels, and it's funny. Yeah, TYT I actually said was unwatchable, but back in the day they were the OGs. They were the only game in town. They were pretty good, but then they kind of went funny. Actually, we also did another episode on why Cenk lost. Did you know that in his recent he ran for a position in California, he didn't even get a half of the third place finisher. So
I know. I think he placed like 3.4%.
Yeah, it's almost like a rejection. It's almost a rejection of Cenk. That's pretty brutal, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and I only knew about that because he was blaming, when he was doing interviews, he was blaming the TYT Union thing. Like, the right wing is co-opting it and using it against me and trying to smear my name. Like I'm a union buster. And it's like, Cenk, you're making this about yourself and being selfish. And that's another thing that I find funny is that more left-leaning people, they'll talk all about like Amazon and like Uber and how bad and negative they are. But when it comes to their organizations, right, the bigger channels, no, don't bring that union talk in my business, my corporation. I'm the one that's supposed to criticize the bigger companies. Don't try to organize here. It's like you're supposed to lead the way. You're supposed to be the leader if that's what you believe and you think that workers should have a voice. Why not structure your business that way and, walk the walk?
Because the rules are for you, not for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's that, man. Screw that, man. I feel you. Man, this is a very cool episode, man. A very cool interview. Yeah. Thank you for stopping by. Honestly, subscribe to this guy. I really enjoy his material. He's got a definite, a unique flavor and look to his stuff. And I really appreciate the fact that he sees things from not just, idealist, some kind of ideologue, preachy type of way, but he's very open, and I think that's something that we all need more of. So thanks again for coming by. God bless, my man.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
Peace, brother.
These videos are independently produced and funded, and your support is deeply appreciated. Liking the video and subscribing helps the channel, and ringing the bell icon will keep you notified as to when we upload new content. You can also check out our other social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you. We also have our event calendar. Links in the description. On our Reddit, you can come in and get on the conversation and check out some of the memes. Like and share, it really helps us in the YouTube algorithm. Every week on Sunday, we have a live online meeting where you can join us in working to create and nurture the change that we need. I'd like to invite you to check out some of our other videos. Until next time, may all your actions bring you success. Stay focused, stay strong, and reinvest in yourself as well as your community. Together, our efforts can be greater than the sum of the parts. The power is in your hands. Thanks for watching.